Live, and I think we are now live. Hey everybody, this is Devin Galladay, the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler, and welcome to another edition of what are we doing here? We are looking to travel for free, and this is the Travel for Free Accelerator, Module 3. Module 3 is all going to be about getting asked back or expanding upon the kind of trips that you may be receiving. So it's kind of going to be a fun thing, but before we get too far involved, I wanted to show you a picture. I'm learning technology, and this is, if you can tell, this is a picture of a wall. It's a pretty wall. I can't even read what it says, something like the world highest standards. That's what it is. Anyway, this is a side of a building that is off of Pacific and I think like 7th Street in downtown Long Beach. It's part of a beautification project. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later because this wall symbolizes almost everything that we're going to cover that is going to be of significance. So I hope you can see all of that. We're going to be switching back in a second. Yeah, here I am again. So we're going to be doing some really fun things today, certainly talking about how we're going to get more travel, how we're going to leverage our value, and hopefully do that again and again and again and again and again. So anyway, I'm not sure who's here today, but if you are here, do say hello somewhere in this lower box so we know that you're around. Questions anytime, but I'll probably try to save the last 15 minutes or so for questions. But feel free to, if there's something that you're not understanding or what have you, do let me know. And we are going to talk about that wall shortly. But before we get into the wall, we are going to talk about what we have learned so far, just a little bit of summary. Hey, Jill, Linda, hello, good to see you. I'm glad that you guys are here. And so what we are starting with is the idea, first off, is that we have a huge industry, the travel industry, that is all of these different little pockets around the world that are all trying to sort of showcase their wares, and whether they be hotels, whether they be cities, whether they be the entire nation itself, everybody's trying to showcase their wares to get you to come over and spend your tourism dollars. And the reason why they're doing it is because in terms of a financial thing is that when you bring in foreign currency, you're talking about money that is just like, it's almost like found on the side of the road. So we're taking things that we already have as a destination and allowing you to come visit and spend your money on hot dogs and fine dining and attractions and admission tickets and all kinds of fantastic things. So when we are talking about tourism dollars, we're talking about places like, Los Angeles is probably one of the larger tourism destinations in the world, not only because it has the beaches and the mountains and Hollywood and all kinds of other things like that. It's also sort of it's a far destination to get to for a lot of places. So to come to it means you're probably going to have to travel for quite a while. Hi, Katie, how are you? I hope things are great wherever you are. And thank you so much for being here. And then there's other destinations like Des Moines, Iowa, that may not have the multitude of fantastic places to come visit, but it's probably still a very, very worthwhile destination. Lorraine, oh my gosh, I remember Tucson in June, so I know how hard and how hot it can be, Lorraine. So anyway, thank you for braving the heat. I hope you're someplace cool and welcome today. And so my point is that some places are going to have a very, very well developed tourism board and other places aren't. That doesn't mean you don't try, and it doesn't mean you don't play the game, because there's still money and things to be had. David, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. the point that I'm trying to make is that just like Des Moines or even smaller towns are going to need to compete with Los Angeles in some ways, you as a travel writer, a travel blogger, a hobbyist of free travel, you're going to have to compete with people that are going to have huge lists and are going to have people that all over the world are going to be clamoring for them to come visit. I want you to understand that In the Know Traveler has never been the biggest. Even when we started brand new, when there was very little competition, we were never the biggest, we were never the hottest, we were never anything. But because I love travel and I was willing to promote it, I've taken a great many trips for free. And so I want you to know, wherever you are in this game, whether or not you have a huge list or a huge vehicle to get traffic, or you are just starting out with zero across the board, don't even worry about that. The point is that you have value. You're going to get better at cultivating it and articulating it and providing it. And that value is going to be seen, because remember, not only is Los Angeles promoting tourism and inviting people from all over the world to come visit, and so those visitors go home and provide all kinds of content about Los Angeles around the world, but so is Des Moines, and so is everywhere around the world. So the point is, sometimes it's important just to have a warm body who's going to do the best they can. I know that's setting the bar low, but the point is that you are going to be more than that sort of like lowest bar setting. You are going to know how to provide value. You're going to be able to articulate that value, and you're going to present yourself in a way that is going to want people to have you come visit, because you're going to be a reliable, honest person who's going to follow up on what they say and do. So wherever you are in this process, be kind to yourself. So again, our top notion is going to be providing value, and we're here to develop long-term relationships with tourism boards around the world who can provide free trips. So just remember, wherever you are, because there's going to be a part of this process where you're going to reach out and you're going to have self-doubt. And as we've talked about before, you don't let that happen. You just keep taking forward motion, little steps at a time. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll get better at it. I absolutely promise you. So we talked about, module 1 was about providing value. Some of the important things that we talked about learning is really narrowing down what kind of value you're willing to provide. It may be a Facebook fan page. It may be your blog. It may be somebody else's blog. It might be something like the Huffington Post. We talked about that. That's not too difficult a publication to write for, because they use truckloads of content. They give you login access information, something that I have as well. I've had it for about 5 years, but I do not write for them very often, only because I can't always guarantee stuff will get published there. But what I can do is put that on my resume, and that sticks out to a lot of people. So you want to make sure that you have access to, even if you are promoting your own blog, you may want to consider making sure that you have at least a few bylines elsewhere. We'll see a handful of links. So you focus on that. What's your value? It could be blog posts, it could be video. It could be some sort of multimedia program. It could be PowerPoint presentations. It could be photography. It could be anything that you want. And as you've probably heard me discuss it, I started out as being a terrible writer. I mean, I was told early on that I was going to be a terrible writer and take woodshop classes as a living. That's what you should do, take woodshop. And I took a lot of woodshop classes based upon that opinion from a million years ago. Turned out not to be so relevant. I have since gotten a master's degree in creative nonfiction. And I tell you that because I probably had my websites for 6 or 7 years before I even considered learning how to write better or really develop my writing skills. So you don't have to, you know, there's nothing you have to do. You don't need to be better. You're perfect as you are. So be kind to yourself and go after it. Some of the things that we talked about is reaching out to your local tourism board. I know at least of a couple people who've done that and have already had a couple meetings with them, which is sort of very, very exciting. So I know that they've gotten some tour deals out of the thing. I haven't spoken with them directly, so I don't know how far they have progressed, but I know that they have gotten some feedback. They're on the list that they want to do. If you are watching and you're one of those people, I highly encourage you to continue to reach out. In other words, just because you've reached out to your local tourism board doesn't mean you stop there. And by the way, the local tourism board is going to be part of our wall story that's going to be coming up in a little bit. Really fun, exciting stuff. So go out, meet them. The reason why they are important is because you could go see them face to face. You can also reach out to local attractions. You can reach out kind of anywhere, if nothing else, to kind of get practice and let that person know, hey, I'm local and I would love to write a story, shoot a video, do an interview with you. That will help get them exposure, and that's what we're all loving to do. So regardless of what value you're providing, just make sure that you put it into a line or two. Develop certainly an elevator pitch so you'll be able to communicate people and lay out precisely what kind of value you'll be able to work with them on in as quickly and as professionally as possible. Week 2 was about sort of like taking it to the next level and developing content. The content development part that we talked about had a lot to do with the simplicity of content creation. We talked about whether or not you want to write in the first person, meaning it's all about me and my perspective and my experience of a destination or a service that's travel related. That's why we do product reviews and things like that. Or it may be much more, shall we say, detached, which is the third person story, which tends to be a little bit more informational, that tends to focus on the stores on the corner. It's across the street from the dry cleaners, and the dry cleaners is open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Saturday. It's the kind of article that you're going to see in Lonely Planet. They tend to be easier to write, in my humble opinion. However, I would say that the personal story, something written in first person, has more impact. It's much easier for me to see myself as part of your story and part of your experience. But the give and take is this, is that when you're writing more informational stories, things that are evergreen, they will be faster to produce, but they'll probably have less impact on the individual reader. However, if you produce 15 informational stories that are easier to write, it probably all measures out. That first person story is going to be much more, shall we say, craft driven. Don't worry, you don't have to be Shakespeare. We talked about other stories or the other types of articles that would be easier to write, such as an interview or an interview of multiple people all responding to the same question. As an example, you may want to go to the Tourism Board of New Zealand and say, what is your favorite part of New Zealand, or what's your favorite attraction of New Zealand, and ask the Tourism Board of New Zealand who is willing to answer that question. And then once you have done so, those people, I guarantee you, will absolutely get to know you. We're also talking about photo galleries. We're talking about things that are going to take less time. I hope you have downloaded. If you haven't yet, I highly suggest that you download my ebook that is about easy article templates, things that are going to take you just a few minutes to develop and build upon. Other things that we discussed in Module 2 are going to include search engine optimization. The idea that you're going to be thinking about long tail keywords in order to write your article. When I talk about long tail keywords, we get into this into the Module 2 summary. We're talking about thinking about what would somebody be writing into their Google search in order to find your article, and exactly your article. That means if you were to type in travel blog, you're going to get a million billion different things that are going to show up in your Google search. If you say travel blog specifically about the highlands of Papua New Guinea, you're not going to have a million things. You're going to have a very specific few things that are all going to be focusing on the highlands of Papua New Guinea, written by a travel blogger. That's the goal here. So what you want to do is, and this is why frequently if you were a blogger, it's a good idea to kind of start developing a niche, because the more niche you are, the more likely that your organic search traffic is going to be able to find you easily. Because that's really what it's all about. If you find articles that nobody can find, it is not going to serve you, and your tourism board friends are going to like you, but they may not entrust their money to send you on a trip. And that's ultimately our goal. So you want to be found. So take a couple extra minutes to go, okay, well, what kind of articles do I need to write in order to get found in the niche that I am serving? So focus on that. The other important thing to understand is social media. That means once you've written your article, think of your search engine optimization as your pre-article phase, your social media as your post-article phase. That means once your article is live, you're going to want to put it on Facebook and Pinterest and StumbleUpon and Google Plus and everywhere else that you can think of that's going to be useful for you. To have your message found to the people. We've also talked about things like hashtags. That's basically the pound sign that you will put in. Like as an example, I very, very seldom will put something on Twitter or anywhere else for that matter that doesn't have some kind of a hashtag. So for me, the hashtags will usually be travel. I keep them fairly generic, so it will invite as many people who are looking for travel as possible. I will also include the hashtag of the destination that I'm writing about. So I might include hashtag Bali if I was writing about a trip to Bali. However, it's important to include what I like to call parallel industries. In other words, when you're writing about travel, it's easy. Okay, I'm writing about the hotel, I'm writing about the destination, etc. But it's also important to include the side industries that may also cozy up to travel. That might be the airlines. It might be if I were, let's say, putting together, and I think I use this as an example, I'm using a retreat in Bali, but there might be a yoga component to that Bali retreat. So I would use the hashtag yoga in Bali or just yoga. And I would reach out to people that dealt with yoga in Bali or yoga in general, because maybe I want free yoga mats or free other products or service that may enhance not only my retreat, but broaden the scope of the people who might be able to find me. So the idea is have a niche, but also present your ideas in front of people who have side niches, because somebody might come to you and say, hey, I have an idea. I would love to be able to sell our yoga mats through your retreat. I'm just making stuff up here, but the point is consider anytime you're writing a story, alternative parallel industries that may be able to funnel into your travel sector and help feed you and grow your business and grow your list and grow whatever it is that you're hoping to accomplish. Which, by the way, always, 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 always looks good to your tourism partners and travel pros that are looking to partner and develop relationships with you for the long term. It's really important, you know, when they're giving you their travel dollars, they want you to just they want you, pardon my language, but they want you to kick butt. And again, these tips that I'm giving you, these hashtags, these, you know, doing social media doesn't take a lot of energy. Like some of you are going to want to do this on a daily basis. Others will not want to do, you know, they're just going to be like, oh, on a per trip basis, I want to use this. Like, oh, I plan on taking a trip in 2 months. And when I do, I want to get as much bang for my buck as possible. Either way, you know, just understand that these are not huge things and pick and choose the things that you like. of like in a nutshell, our first couple of modules. So this is the fun stuff for me, is getting about developing the relationships long-term to get invited back. It means that we're going to do a lot of thinking outside of the box and looking for ways that we can create and prompt value in what others see in us, because you want to be seen as going the extra step, the extra mile. And we're going to talk about the specifics in a minute. But what I wanted to understand or share with you is that when we go on a trip, we want to understand what that trip is all about. And that wall that we shared a little bit earlier is going to be about, shall we say, the dog and pony show of the experience. And there is one. And so it's something that I'm going to want to kind of detail out to you. But first off, press trips come in two varieties. They come in the variety where there's somewhere between, 2 and 100 people, other writers from around the world, joining you on a trip. A theme, and the bigger the theme is, the more narrow the theme, the tighter the niche, the smaller the group. That will focus. In other words, if you were into family travel, as an example, they may bring your whole family over. And it might be just 2 or 3 families, and you're going to be hanging out with those families for somewhere between 2 days and 2 weeks, which, has its pluses and its downside. The other types of trip is when you are really going on your own. That means, hey, I can make 3 stories happen in Croatia. I will call Croatia. I might call the destination of Split and Dubrovnik and Zagreb and say, hey, I'm coming to town. I want X, Y, and Z. I have 3 confirmed articles or 4 confirmed articles. I'm also going to do social media, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure that you lay out your value really clearly. And they're going to agree or disagree. You may want to fly out there on your own. You may want to use frequent flyer miles. You may want to use a variety of different things to get you on that trip or make it easier for them. But that's up to you. You get to decide whether or not you want to try to include the airfare. If they pay for the airfare, they're just going to want more perceived value. Remember, the perceived value, it's all a crapshoot until that value is actually delivered, until that magazine article comes out. So they have to kind of weigh their pros and cons in order to choose you, which is part of the thing that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. So what you should know about press trips is that everywhere they're doing them around the world. Your job primarily is to gather information and show up on time. It's really sort of crucial because remember, and I can't stress this strongly enough, that you are going on somebody else's dime. So the least you can do is meet them halfway, because sometimes you're going to write a story in a magazine and they may not love the article, or they were hoping that you were going to write about the hotel and instead you wrote about the bar around the corner. Those kinds of things are going to happen. You're not going to do this perfectly, but it's important to always remind them of what your intentions are, that you love travel, and that you're going to focus it. Remember, I wouldn't say that you love travel. I wouldn't recommend chumming for trips ever. Always start and lead with the value that you can provide. Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that happened literally 2 days ago. We're going to get into this in just a second. But 2 days ago, I went on, actually, I got an email, just sort of a generic email from a woman that I had worked with before. Remember, I was telling you about PR people tend to be sort of like 22 to 27 and super smart and very, very capable. I got an email from one of those people who said, oh, by the way, we're doing a thing in Long Beach. I know that you're in Southern California. Why don't you come by? And it talked about some other events going on, and it basically is the wall. And so I want to share with you the wall here. So here's the wall, right? The wall is this kind of cool thing. It's a beautiful mural. It's probably about 30 feet high, maybe 100 feet wide. I'm not even showing you the whole thing. And the important thing that I want you to understand is that this is an event. It's an event in Long Beach that ago. And hold on, pressing the wrong button. There we go. Okay, let me back out of this picture again. So there's probably about 200 people that show up at this event. And as you can see over in this corner over here, there's somebody talking and there's a bunch of people taking pictures and listening. Over on one side, let me see if I can show you this. Yeah, over here, you can see that there is the Corner Bakery Cafe showed up and they were serving us breakfast and coffee. There's another place off to the side here that was doing oven pizzas, and it was feeding all of the people in attendance. And so we're gonna start talking about the Dog and Pony Show in a minute. So here's one of the women who showed up and speak. She was not the only speaker. You may see back here that there are other speakers getting prepared. There was a DJ, there was music, it was an event. It was an event in Long Beach. And so the culmination of this event is the pictures of these dignitaries. Now, you would think that the whole focus of this event would be about the artists, which are the two guys in the baseball caps. It actually isn't. The mayor was there. The guy who represented who donated some money, who was with the harbor, some other dignitaries, the local, not the congressperson, but the city official, the MC. There was a whole slew of people talking about this event. But really, the value for the entire event is this picture. This is the picture of the Dog and Pony Show. The Dog and Pony Show is that they want a picture of the mayor speaking in front of hundreds of people as frequently as possible, because it shows him that he's working for the government. It shows, we're going to stop this and go back. There we are, back again. What ends up happening is this. For an event to take place and for tourism to succeed, they have to spend money on events. And this is happening all over the world. I mean, I've gone to events where everybody's meeting the president, everybody's shaking hands with the king, everybody's having dinner with the governor. And what's important to know about all of these things is that there is always a photographer on hand who is not part of the event, who is taking pictures of the event. Because what's as important as what the governor or the president may be saying is that there is a visual to take of what the governor is actually doing. It's politics, and it's big money politics. And this is, again, this is why tourism exists. It is almost as if your articles and content that you are creating. Now, I can tell you, like, articles I've written have been meaningful and have driven visitors to destinations all over the world. But that would not have taken place just purely out of the goodness of the heart of the governor or the tourism board who had me there. They have to be seen spending money, big money events, and seeing success in their department. So the Dog and Pony Show is almost less about the results of the articles that we will be writing and the content that we'll be creating, but more so about the political endeavors that justify what they're ultimately going to do. And this sort of helps everybody. So I think when I say Dog and Pony Show, I think I describe it in a little bit of a jaded manner. And that's really, that might not be the fair thing to do here. Really, I kind of affectionately call it a Dog and Pony Show, but really it's the system. And the system is this, is that when the tourism board can showcase the events that it's putting on and showcase the attention that it is receiving, again, their perceived value, when they can make sort of, shall we say, their bosses notice them in a way that is going to be valuable, it is going to enhance their status. And when their status is enhanced, they can ask for raises and things like that, but they can also ask for larger budgets to put on yet more events, invite journalists over to come visit and write articles. So it's not just about content creation, and it is on our end, but the important thing I want you to understand is that there is a giant machine in the background that is constantly churning out more things to see and do in a constant way. So going back to the wall that I showed you just at the beginning of this show and then later, is that wall is about, not only is it creating that one-day event, that wall is creating a series of events throughout Long Beach that's going on right now this whole week. They're calling it the powwow. And so there's a going on. So first off, before I start telling you about like those specific details, which are not all that exciting, what I want you to know is that the woman who sent it to me, her name was Kim. And I met Kim a number of years ago at an event called Tianguis, which is sort of like a big tourism convention. Every year it's held at a different location in Mexico. And the Tourism Board of Mexico hires a big PR firm in the US to get in touch with American journalists, bring them all down there. And there's all these different PR firms all, working to get Tianguis, like up to 35 different countries around the world, all lost me. Okay, what did you lose, Jill? Give me more specifics, and I will bring it up, unless you've lost my feed or my connection. If not, you may want to log back out and then log back in. So what ends up happening is all these, the tourism board puts on an event, and they have these PR firms that are all managing their satellite countries. As an example, Mexico tourism has representative just handling the United States. So when I go to Tianguis, I meet with my PR contacts. And in this case, it was Kim about 4 years ago. So Kim and her other colleagues ran into a couple points of trouble during the process of the event. One of the ways that I looked outside of the box is, even though the choices they made actually created a little bit of inconvenience for me personally, I was not going to join in all of the upset that was happening around them. Matter of fact, what I chose to do was align myself with them and make myself a safe place for them. Because I understand they're young, they're capable, they messed up. Who cares? It is irrelevant in the long term. What's important is that my relationship continue to grow and flourish with these individuals that will help me gain access to all of the things that I want in the future. So Kim, after this Tianguis event, eventually sends me off to Colombia. One of her colleagues sends me to Fiji. A third colleague sends me to some other destination. I think she sent me to Mexico again. So from me being nice in that moment, I ended up getting 3 additional trips. Plus, I created value for each one of those trips. So that circle of PR people were all thrilled with me. So I ended up working with other people, and I haven't heard from Kim in quite a while. Kim actually resurfaced as the representation for the city of Long Beach. So she's down there. And what did I do during this time there? Do I care about the wall? Nah, not so much. I mean, I appreciate that it's a beautiful wall. I appreciate they're doing things in Long Beach to beautify the city that I live in. But what's more important is now I get to reconnect with somebody that I've already developed a relationship with, and she already knows that I'm a good guy. So I spent 10 minutes speaking with Kim. Well, what did Kim and I talk about? We talked about what she's done since she has left working with the one PR firm that was managing Mexico, and now she's working with a different one. We talked about what I've been doing. So I told her that In the Know Traveler is great. I didn't need to go into much detail. I didn't need to give her an elevator pitch because she's already heard it. I told her about In the Know Traveler. I talked to her about In the Know Bride, and I talked about my wife and I getting married in 100 countries and 100 weddings. And she was like, yeah, I saw that. And so she's keeping her tabs on me. in part because I made Facebook friends. Always make Facebook friends with your tourism contacts wherever possible, because it allows you to know them in a little bit more personal way, and it allows them to know you in a more personal way. It keeps you on sort of like in their field of vision, which is an important thing. So that's something that I definitely recommend everybody do. So she was familiar with what I was up to, and then it became about, so what's going on in Long Beach? Well, we're doing a powwow. Great. Well, what's the powwow about? Well, it's about these art installations, and it's about the beautification projects that we have going on in Long Beach. That's terrific. Tell me about that. So by the end of this 15-minute conversation, not only did I find out about what's going on in Long Beach, I also asked her one of the pivotal questions that I actually saved for after another question. I asked her something personal. Literally, I mean, I knew her a little bit, so I could say, hey, so what's going on? You moved from New York to, to San Francisco. Tell me what's going on with that. And she told me what she liked and didn't like about San Francisco. I asked about her boyfriend, and I'm like, is it love? I'm not necessarily suggesting you need to do that. You're going to have to play that by ear on whether or not you have confidence in understanding where somebody else is at. So if you feel confident in doing it and it's not going to ruffle feathers or be taken as a weird thing, don't do it. But if you feel confident doing it, absolutely. Like listen, my wife and my wedding, we're on Facebook all the time talking about love. So I didn't have an issue saying, hey, so what's going on with your relationship? Is it love? And I get to hear about what's going on in a positive way in her love life. And if it wasn't positive, that would be fine, because I would console in her sadness if that was the case. The good news is she was all thumbs up. So what was the result of that 11-minute conversation? I got a face-to-face introduction with specifically the person I should be meeting with in terms of Long Beach. I spoke with my contact and reinvigorated that. My final question is for Kim in this particular instance is, who else are you representing? Because sure, she represents Long Beach, and there's only so much I want to personally do with that, and there's a limited amount of articles I can write about that, but she has other things to look like a rock star in her universe by finding out how else might we work together. So she worked with Huntington Beach and a few other destinations in Southern California. She also had clients like North Dakota and some other places that truthfully probably didn't turn me on, but that doesn't matter. These are important things for me to know, because if I can help North Dakota, I then help my PR contact. And more importantly, not only is her PR firm representing some Southern California locations in North Dakota, she is also representing a cruise line that handles the Amazon in Peru. Do I want to go on that trip? I totally do. Do I want to go to Hangzhou, China? Yeah, I'm up for that as well. So in the process of me getting to understand and see Long Beach a little bit better, and I will ultimately write a couple articles about Long Beach because there's no downside for me. I may interview her at some point in the future. I may interview the Long Beach, and I'll make sure to tie my relationship with Kim back to Long Beach, so the Long Beach people will be happy with Kim. So I'm always trying to create circles where it all looks good for everybody. And more importantly, if I do something nice for Long Beach, I may be on her radar when she's like, oh, we need another person to go to Huangshu in China, which I would be happy to go to. So all of those things work together to create something. More importantly is when I say, who else is your PR firm representing? And she says, oh, we're representing Huangshu. Are you representing them? Oh, no. Let me introduce you to my colleague who's handling China for us. So again, what we're doing is we're slowly building the concentric circles of people and relationships that I want to be closer to. So why do I go to see a wall in Long Beach when I know so much about the mural? Again, beautiful, but not necessarily my scene. I do it because this is my opportunity to have one-on-one FaceTime with the people that will broaden the scope of my contact's future. And also consider this. my PR firm, or this particular PR firm, when my contact, Kim, introduces me to her colleague, there's nothing to discuss. I don't really have to prove myself to that colleague, because Kim, by recommending me to that colleague, has already sort of like, we've already bypassed whatever concerns there needs to be, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten that introduction. I'm hoping all of this makes sense. How are we doing? Everybody okay? I hope this technology is all working and you guys are all with me and having fun and finding fascinating insights about the Dog and Pony Show of what this is. So remember, when I say the Dog and Pony Show, we are talking about how do we connect all the dots to make it fun and effective for all of those people that are concerned. So, so what's happening next? So let's say you get a trip. What is that going to look like? The trip is going to look like, well, here, I'll give you another story. I remember going to an airlines preview. This was a few years back for Hello Kitty. EVA Airlines made a Hello Kitty plane. Matter of fact, I've flown on that Hello Kitty plane. And the Hello Kitty plane has like crackers that are shaped in the face of Hello Kitty and Chocolate Kitty and Baby Vegetable Kitty and whatever other kitties are involved in that pantheon of cartoons. But what ended up happening was I went to this event. I didn't really care about the Hello Kitty plane. Actually, I went because my daughter was into Hello Kitty and has always been into Hello Kitty. So I went to this Hello Kitty thing just to take a picture of the plane. And while I was walking there, the guy who heads up the PR firm, he's a big cheese. As a matter of fact, he's one of the people that I believe I'm going to be offering you interviews later with, which I think you're going to love. He literally was walking one way and I was walking another direction. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know you, don't I? And I'm like, yeah, we've worked together a couple of times. And he goes, Macau? And I said, yeah, I think so. And so that was a trip offer, that one word. And then he ran away somewhere else. He contacted me 2 days later and said, hey, can you do X? And I said, yes. And he goes, terrific. And he put me in contact with the person who put together the details, a 22 to 27-year-old, very, very capable young woman. And I ended up going to Macau and Hong Kong and staying extra days on both of those trips. So I'm hoping that you can, lost me for a while. When you say lost me for a while, Jill, are you talking about you're confused by the content, or was there a technical glitch, like all of a sudden the screen went out or you had bad internet connection or something like that? Do let me know so I might be able to help you on your end. If I'm being confusing, I will slow down and try it from a new angle to make sure that you understand the information. Tech glitch. Okay, cool. Are you good with me? Is everybody good with the information that I'm sharing? Is this making sense of some of the tactics you can take to working with PR people and tourism board folks in order to kind of start developing relationships? I'm hoping that's making a lot of sense to you. Do write me a yay or nay so I can kind of know that. So, so some of the other things that come to mind when I'm trying to be of service to my audiences, I want to make them look good. So let me give you an example. I was on a press trip to Thailand, and it was a huge, huge event. It was actually, I was going to be traveling with them for almost 3 weeks. But there was a 2-day event called the Thailand Travel Market, and I think it still happens every year in June. But one of the things that was really important to me is that how do I make my contact with Thailand look great? Because that's who invited me out there. And so one of the things that had happened was they had a press event. The kind of event where they have somebody from the tourism board get up and tell you face to face, and they want you to ask questions, and they want you to learn about Thailand. They want to feel like they brought you over here, and they want to have this event so those tourism officials that get up and make speeches, there's an interaction, there's an interest. They have a sense that, yes, what's supposed to be taking place is exactly what is taking place. So we're having this. So one of the dignitaries from the Thailand Tourism Authority gets up and starts making a speech, and I'll be frank with you, it was not the greatest speech I've ever heard. As a matter of fact, it was all over the place. Good, I'm glad to hear it, Lorraine. So the speech itself is all over the place. And at the end of it, when half of the room was asleep, they said, "Any questions?" And the room doesn't move. And I didn't want to move. And I looked up at my PR contact who kind of like, help us, because they want questions. So I got up and I started asking questions. And I did. One of the things that I do, and I recommend that you do if you're ever in a press event, is literally listen to the event, take notes if you think there's something that's particularly relevant to you. And if it isn't, think of the kinds of questions that you can ask that will be useful to the event. Remember, for 2 days, I had to be really present at this sort of media event, but the rest of the time I was just seeing Thailand, which was spectacular and fun, and I loved it, and got $4 foot massages, and it was totally great. But what I did was I got up and I took that cue as quickly as possible to ask as many questions, and I asked questions for another half an hour. Did the other writers love that about me, that I prolonged that press event? No. But did the speaker? Absolutely. Did some of his aides appreciate it? Absolutely. Did it allow me to get a one-on-one interview later with that dignitary? Absolutely. Did that dignitary love me even more that when I promoted that interview? Absolutely. Did my tourism contact that manages Thailand in Los Angeles love that I did all that? Absolutely. And so what that afforded me was additional trips down the road. And one of the things that happened, the reason why I even developed a relationship with Thailand had more to do with a trip that I took to the Philippines. So what ended up happening was I was on a trip, and I might have described this, so I'll keep it brief to you, but I was sitting on I happened to be sitting at an event, and I just happened to be seated next to the tourism board person of the Philippines. This was years and years ago. And we started talking about my website, and we started talking about what their goals were. And she said, "Have you ever thought of going to the Philippines?" And I said, I would love to, because I've heard really wonderful things about the balut and durian fruit. By the way, balut is and durian fruit smells like hell. So she laughed because she knew that I probably didn't appreciate these particular delicacies. But what she did was she sent me to the Philippines. And of course, I did everything that I could to make sure that the Philippines shined in the articles that I wrote. So unbeknownst to me, there was an event where the tourism pros from Southeast Asia all got together, and she sung my praises at the right time. So that meant I ended up getting trips to Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and one other place. I can't remember. But the point is that I traveled a lot by going the extra step and trying to develop my relationship. And all of this stuff really kind of came from sort of more out of the box thinking. It was more about how can I serve them even if I'm not necessarily writing an article. So where are we at? We've talked about Long Beach. We've talked about travel. Another important thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that, when I have been on trips that didn't go well, one of the things that happened really quickly, and I want to take this little seed and plant it in your hands, because in the long term, it's going to really work out for you, is that, and it's really more of a mindset thing. When you go on a trip, there's going to be a point after you've been on 10 or 15 trips where maybe you're jaded, or you feel entitled to better treatment or something. Something is going to take place. And you'll see those people around you, well, the food wasn't good enough, or my mattress was lumpy, or the hotel was terrible, or something. And that may be true. It may be true because sometimes hotels have a bad day and you are the brunt of that. So that said, one of the things that you will see happen in press trips is where people get annoyed because they're on a bus or the meal wasn't great enough or they're not getting the stories that they feel they should get. It weighs down on everything. And the part that is important to always remember is that there are people who've spent hundreds of hours putting together a trip so you can have a fantastic time. Nobody puts together a press trip haphazardly. Nobody sends you to a hotel or flies you out in the hopes that you are going to be unhappy and miserable. They want to give you the best of everything, the most economical way possible, and so everybody has a great time and gets what they want. So if you hold on to the idea of gratitude, you're probably going to have a much funner trip. And understand things are going to be, sometimes you're going to have the greatest meal ever, and sometimes there was like, it just wasn't happening for this particular day, for that particular chef. But when you hold on to that idea of gratitude, especially when those around you are being upset and annoyed and pissed off, gratitude is going to carry you a long way to being of service to the trip, to be of service to your article and to your tourism board folks. So where are we at right now? We are talking about, right. The last thing that I was going to say is that when I was talking with Kim, one of the things that she came back with, which is a line that I want you to take with you, again, another pearl of wisdom, take it off of my tongue and put it in your pocket and save it for later, is that she, at the end of the paragraph, is like, let me rephrase. When we had spoken the following day, she said, here's the list of the places that we're going to be doing. Here are the contacts. I'm sending off an email to introduce you, which she did. But she also said, by the way, we're having a boat ride tomorrow, free lunch. We're going to take you out. We're going to show you some of the seaside installations, and we're going to have a great time. It's going to be 4 or 5 hours in the harbor of Long Beach, which, by the way, sounds kind of great. I personally could not make that, but she had already offered me a trip to experience that, again, as sort of a chosen person. And my guess is I will write some article about Long Beach, and she will be more than happy to help me get more moving forward. And so one of the things that she wrote is that how can we collaborate in the future? So always, it's another, just like gratitude, here's another 50-cent word. The idea is that you are looking to collaborate and create partnerships with these folks for the long term. So important stuff to know. If you have not reached out to your tourism board, I highly recommend that you do. It's going to take you a couple minutes. I know you're going to be nervous, but I promise you can do it, and there's no downside to it. Even if you have no value at all, if you call up or shoot out an email that says, hey, my name is Larry, and I am a writer. I have some assignments coming up. I'm really interested in working more with you. How can we work together, or how can I be added to your media contact list, will absolutely pay dividends. Also, remember, I promised you guys a byline. So when you are ready, you have me. We can talk about it. I absolutely recommend that you get in touch with me at either at Devin at In the Know Traveler or DG at In the Know Traveler. I think that's probably the thing that you can find me over here with. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it down in here. It's DG at InTheKnowTraveler.com. And you'll find it right there at the top there. So a couple of the things that I think that you're going to really want to focus on. And remember, none of this stuff has to do with asking for trips. If you develop a relationship to an extent where you're really comfortable with the other person and it's very clear you've provided value in the past, ask away. But make sure that you have clarity, again, of what you're going to be able to deliver for the things that you're asking for. So how to get invited back. Think outside of the box, and wherever you can, be memorable, just like I did when I was very briefly prompted to go ask some questions, and I jumped up and did so. If you can figure out ways to be memorable, whether it be in the content that you produce or in your face-to-face meeting, thumbs up. Deliver your promised value. And remember, this is going to be in the summary of Module 3, but just so we can be clear on it right now. Deliver a little bit more than what you promise you're going to. Throw in a photo gallery. Even if you are not Ansel Adams or the best photographer ever, definitely do that. Be easy on trips, meaning that when you are on a trip or any interaction with sort of like key personnel who are going to be there, and I'm not kidding you, I have met numerous presidents and kings around the world. Like really, who knew that's a thing? But it's part of the dog and pony show. Officials need to be seen shaking hands. So be easy on your trips. Make it easy for them to invite you back so they don't have to think, oh, I don't want to deal with that person again. Volunteer and ask a lot of questions. You always want to make sure that you appear engaged. Talk to your tour leaders, talk to your tour guides, and talk to your PR people, and literally pull them over to the side. And it's like, how can I help you? What kind of articles are you going to need? What's going to make your day look great? And when you do that, like in a sincere way, and then deliver on those promises, you will have a PR person on your team forever. Just make sure that you deliver. So volunteer and ask questions. Appear that you are asking, doing the right thing. And by the way, always follow up. A matter of fact, what I would suggest, like if you come back from a trip, immediately follow up and say thank you. By phone, matter of fact, don't send an email, send a card that you spent $2 on. Personally, what I did was I designed cards using my logo, and I have thank you cards for In the Know Traveler. They cost me, I think, $19 for 100 of them. What's that? 19 cents a piece. And when they get them, it's something that they keep on their desk, and it has my logo on it. So think about those kinds of things that will be useful long term when you're ready to move up to that next level. Follow up anytime you have an article released, especially when it comes out about the country based upon a trip or an interaction you had with the tourism board. And by the way, here's a special note. I would absolutely do the social media on that article before you send your contact to that page. In other words, what you would like to have is have maybe a comment or two on the page with replies to that comment, plus a few clicks on Facebook, Yahoo, Google, those kinds of things. So that article doesn't look like it's flowing in a desert. You want to have it, to be quite honest with you, in general, I can drive 100 clicks of favorable thumbs up with 15 minutes of work to most of my articles, and that's how you want to have them seen, is that there's thumbs up, there's clicks, and there's enthusiasm as part of your site. So, create some, do that through Facebook fan pages, do that through Twitter, do that through Google. Really important stuff. Remember, it is important to always be seen as somebody who kicks butt. Let's see, what else? After social media, use hashtags wherever you can. That's specific to Google, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Matter of fact, there's usually a tick box on both LinkedIn and on Google that will allow you to auto-populate whatever it is that you write on those sites to populate also on Twitter, which is a good thing. And always, always, always ask, who else do you represent? Or if you're dealing directly with the tourism board, find out who their tourism contact is in London, who represents the UK or who represents Europe. You want to be on their list as well, because you never know when they may need somebody for some crazy reason to come from the US on a UK-based trip. So again, personally, I'm on everybody's list. There's never a downside other than me having to press delete a fair amount of times. But you can always create a new email through either a Gmail account or through your website that is just contacts. So We have been talking for about an hour. I would love, if you guys have any questions at all, I would love to hear from you now. Let me know, how are we doing over on your end? Oh, and by the way, if you have an article idea that you would like to include on In the Know Traveler for your byline and you need help, you can also shoot me an email right there. DG at In the Know Traveler. You can just shoot me, a question. But what? And by the way, next week we have our sort of like our big one-off 90-minute Q&A. So absolutely, like really think about this. This is a wonderful opportunity to pick my brain. I can cover pretty much everything from WordPress installation to Photoshop usage to video editing to all kinds of stuff within the travel industry, and I am happy to help you. So remember, so we have that next week, next Friday. Let's see, have you talked with the new China Airlines Sky team flying out of Houston, Texas? I have not, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't. I mean, it may be as simple as this, Linda. I would, first off, I can guarantee you that China Airlines almost certainly has somebody that is based out of LAX. In other words, there's a China Airlines office because there's a China Airlines they're in the international terminal at LAX, and there's almost certainly somebody who has an office for China Airlines. So I would probably just contact China Airlines, maybe their website even, or type in China Airlines LAX. I'll type that in for you. That's what I would Google search, or Los Angeles, and find out. And you can, by the way, you can do the exact same thing and type in China Airlines Houston. There's probably somebody on the ground who works there. They may not have all of the marketing information. It may take a minute or two to track it down. What you're looking for is to contact their marketing department. And their marketing department is probably going to have either the person who's a media contact or the press contact, because that's ultimately who you want to track down, or you want to be able to track down who is their PR person or PR firm in the United States. Because again, China Airlines wants to make sure that you're using their airlines, not just from flying from, let's say, Los Angeles or Houston to China, but anywhere in Asia or that they fly out of. So they want as much coverage as possible. And you might want to approach them, Linda, with the idea of who is helping develop your articles and your contact or your content for flying from Houston to wherever their major hub is. I'm going to guess it's Shanghai or Beijing. So those are my thoughts on that. I hope that works for you. Let's see, Jill writes, would it be worth me trying to get in to talk to someone with the Singapore Tourism Board during the day off I have on my way to Bali? To be quite honest with you, depending on how quickly, I think you're doing Bali in a very, very short amount of time, right? If that's the case, Jill, truthfully, you probably want to do something, the more time out, the better. And truthfully, if they say, hey, I'm writing you a day or two in advance, that would probably raise some sort of like a red flag for them. By the way, this is just sort of like a general thing. I don't want to come across as sort of like making a generalization about anybody ever, because I love our differences and I love, I've had so many wonderful experiences, I wouldn't even know where to begin. But it's important to understand, you will find when you are working with Asian tourism boards, they are a little bit more results orientated. So if you say, oh, I'm writing a magazine article, they're going to want to know, well, what magazine? And if you say what magazine, they're going to say, well, what's the circulation? And if you give them the circulation, they're like, okay, well, what's the, how many eyeballs do you think I will get from somebody reading that article that you've written? Okay, And they may even say, well, what percentage of the people reading this magazine are likely to come to my destination? So just understand, you may not have all the answers to those questions, but they're going to be thinking, a definite, like, well, what's the payoff? If we spend $500 on a writer, are we going to be getting our $501 back? What's going to be our return on investment? They're going to want to link those chains, and that's what I've currently experienced. As an example, when I was in Japan, quite literally, more often than not, when you go on a press trip, you will have you'll have your experience. Everybody will go home. You may not even get a follow-up from the people that you went on the trip with. It'll be kind of like in your court. This is less true of Asia. They're going to want to know, like, the last time I went to Japan, which was a couple of years back, there was literally a point where all the travel writers were put on one side of a table, and all of the people that sort of provided service for us during the trip were put on the other side of the table. And they literally wanted each person give like a 10-minute report of what they liked, what they didn't like, what could be improved, and what articles I plan to write in order to serve which people along that other side of the table. It was actually a little bit hectic, but I lived through it. It was totally fine. There was a couple of people who had a lot more of an emotional response to it. So I hope that was useful to you, Jill. I would definitely give yourself 3 weeks in advance, maybe a month, if you can, to get in touch with the Singapore Tourism Board. However, I hope you're still with me. The however is this: no matter what happens, I would call up the Singapore Tourism Board, even if it's not 3 weeks in advance, and say, hey, I'm Jill. I am accomplishing X. I think you're running a retreat, if I'm not mistaken. I have an article in the No Traveler, or whomever else you may have that, or through your personal blog on your website promoting your retreat. And you want to let them know, hey, I'm going to be in and out of Singapore, I expect with some regularity. And I would love to perhaps set up something where I get to be able to offer this to my people who will be flying in Singapore. How might we collaborate together? Or is there a Singapore tourism person that is in my, in the United States that I can speak to? So whether it be Singapore tourism, I actually think they don't have a sort of like Singapore tourism in the US, but I believe they go back and forth between not having a tourism board and having a tourism board. They definitely have press contacts for that. So anyway, I hope that helps. Is there any other questions for today? Nope, I think we're good. Hopefully I gave you lots of great content about how to get back invited on trips. Honestly, I know your life is busy, but I want you to get the most bang for your buck for this particular series of modules. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be giving you the summary for Module 3 as well as our Rockstar checklist probably on Sunday night. I just want to make sure that everything looks good and the I's and T's are crossed and that I cover all the stuff that we've talked about today. So go through as much information that you can. I want you to have as many questions that you can, because I want it to be as a fruitful 90 minutes as humanly possible. And thank you, Jill. I'm glad that this was what you were looking for. Anyway, I think that's all we have for Module 3 today, unless something happens in the next couple seconds. Nope, that's all right. So we are going to get together again Friday at noon, 1 week from today, and we're going to answer all of your questions. Bring them all. How to work WordPress, how to do social media. Just throw them all at me. I'm going to be prepared, and this is going to be a fun thing. So thank you so much. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to your questions next week. As always, our Facebook tribe is still active. Matter of fact, it's doing pretty well. I always get something every day or so, somebody making a comment. So if you are in trouble midweek, or you are reaching out to somebody and you've received a response and you don't know how to deal with it, throw it on there and I will absolutely check off and we will fix it together. Thanks so much for being here and have a fantastic week. Mwah.